Welcome to Work You Love, real stories of career change and fulfillment. This is the show where we share real stories of people who once felt stuck in their careers, made a change, and found work that lights them up. I'm your host, Danielle. I've worn a lot of hats in my own career, and my mission here is simple: to help you find work that you love. Each week, you'll hear inspiring stories and practical tools to stop feeling stuck and start building a career that truly fits you. So let's dive in. Welcome, Ashley. I'm so excited to have you on Work You Love. You have such an interesting story and you're in the process of building something really cool. So I always love to start with, what are you doing now and what do you love most about it?
Well, thank you first of all for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So right now, I've been saying that I'm like a cat with nine lives. I'm doing like a little bit of a mix of everything. I am currently making my exit from my HR career, which has been about 10 years, which is crazy. And I'm also a server at a local restaurant and I do a bunch of other different things. I'm about to start a little bit of voice acting, but really my end goal is to start a hotel in the area that I live in, which is the Poconos, which I know we will get into.
Let's rewind a bit, actually, because you mentioned you had this career in HR for 10 years. What led you to want to step out of that role? And then I also know when we met, you had just kind of left that full time and gone off on your own to start your own business, which I think is also so cool. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
My story started in hospitality and I ended up getting recruited with this like luxury travel agency, just like working in hotels and different things. And at the travel agency, I grew into a role where I ended up looking after basically like their people and employee experience. And I did that for 6.5 years until, I created their onboarding, their training programs, different networking, learning and development. And that's where I realized like, oh, this is HR. And I really built it out and was really proud of what I did there. But after being there for almost 7 years, I essentially felt like I reached my glass ceiling there. And it was time to step into HR and like step into like a fully fleshed out HR role. And actually, my segue into that was through consulting. So I ended up with this really amazing small business like consulting company, and I tried out being a consultant there. I've learned this about myself, I think, like through these experiences, but I will try something out and I will figure out if I'm good at it or if I'm not, or if I love it or if I don't. And if I'm not into it, I'm out. Or if I'm like not good at it, then like definitely out. It was a lot more technical than I had expected. And I felt like I was preparing for the SATs every single day. And it just wasn't for me. I ended up feeling really drained. So from there, I found a role at this tech company, which was really a little bit more of a VC. I really fell in love with what I was doing there. And I woke up one day, I was living in the city for probably like 13, 14 years at that point. And I felt this like call to be back in nature. I really liked the people that I was working with and what I had built out there, but ultimately, my move back home meant that I would need a more remote or hybrid position. I needed someone in office and I was very grateful for that experience. And then from there, that's where I was just like, you know what? Maybe consulting is my thing, but my specialty is employee experience because I love making people feel accepted and creating a space for connection and belonging. And it's funny because I compared it to being an opening GM, which like in hospitality is like when a new hotel is opening, and maybe they're just trying to figure out, what leadership is going to look like there. They will hire someone who has opened hotels before and basically like gets the show running and sets the level of expectation and lets you know like this is what it should look like on like a foundational level. And then once the hotel is up and running and it's starting to be successful, they'll hire someone who's like more full time. And that's kind of how I saw myself in this HR role. It's like, yeah, I'm like the person that creates the foundation, but maybe I don't need to stay around for a long time. And that's how I was able to kind of create this remote culture for myself. And I was able to take on a few other clients and continue focusing on HR. And yeah, it was I guess like almost a year ago now, where I kind of hit this wall again of I don't know if HR is it. I got this like cute little townhouse that I'm in now. So I approached my landlord about B&Bing my apartment through like Airbnb. And he's a great landlord, like very open-minded and like very business driven. So he liked that I had this entrepreneurial mindset. And he basically yes anded me. And, I've always had this lofty dream of one day having my own bed and breakfast.
It's cool that you are following your kind of intuition and that one, you're just trying things out because I think most people don't even like take the step to take the action to try things out. So
Yeah.
you are showing people that you can totally do that. You can change however many times that you want until you finally find the right fit, which I think you have in hospitality. And it's kind of the same through line that you thought JAR was going to give you,
Yeah.
but a little bit in a different way of just creating space where people feel really accepted.
So back to the B&B moment. So yeah, so my landlord yes anded me about, potentially taking over the lease for his other units. And I did not have the finances to do that on my own, to be paying for a second lease with the risk of not making rent because I need the revenue to do that. And, the first month that's all furnishing and like moving in and that's more money to pay for all of these things. And so I was just like, oh, this is never going to happen. And it's really nice that he offered me this, but probably not. And coincidentally, one of my very best friends and her fiance, we go out to dinner one night and he's also a hospitality geek. And I'm telling about this funny opportunity with my landlord. And my God, how cool would it be? But it's probably never going to happen. And he goes, well, are you serious about this? Because if you are, I've been interested in doing something similar with like short-term rentals and I have the capital to like get this up and running. So long story short, he drew up all the paperwork and he's really our like finance and ops guy. And he's like, you're like the marketing, the vision, the like face of the guest experience. And he wasted no time putting Excel sheets together and getting the branding done and incorporating what is now known as Pocono's Nest and Nook. And we got our first rental up and running in March, and it has been consistently booked. Summer in the Poconos is huge. It's beautiful. And like where we're located, we're right by like all of the outdoor activities that people come here for. It just picked up way quicker than I thought it would, which I just felt like was a huge sign from the universe that like this is the path that we're meant to be on. And while doing that, yeah, I started working at a local restaurant here as a server. And it was one thing in hospitality that I'd never done. I've done housekeeping, I've done front desk, I've been the hostess at a restaurant, I've worked on the corporate side in the luxury travel agency. And serving was just something I always wanted to try out. And the cool thing about the restaurant that I work for is when you are becoming a server, they train you on all positions. So if ever someone calls out or can't make it or the million things that can happen, they have people to jump in and know how to do that job. I just had this moment one night where I was mopping the floors and I'm like covered in soy sauce and like the owner like kind of came through and she like made some comment and I was like, Chrissy, I would so much rather be mopping floors for $4 an hour than like putting a presentation together. It was like as soon as I spoke it, it just felt so real. It was just like this deep inner knowing of like, I would rather be mopping floors than like staring at a computer screen all day or like sitting in an office, which, also has its joy, but there's just something about the camaraderie of being in those settings and the fast pace of it all. I love hospitality. I love to bring the light and the levity to situations.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because something that I think could hold someone back in terms of moving from the corporate world to maybe a more hands-on job that they might enjoy more, but there could be all this fear of I'm leaving this stable, like fancy corporate role and moving into something that could be viewed of as not as stable or fancy. Did you have to overcome any fears around that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I proved to myself that I could do it. I had multiple clients at one time, and I was making more money than I ever thought I could make on my own, which was a really cool feeling. And yeah, there was a lot of fear of letting go of that first big client and thinking about, oh my God, like, how am I going to pay my bills? Or, is this going to be okay? Am I going to be financially stable? Am I going to be making enough at the restaurant? Am I going to be making enough from the B&B? But I am also a very spiritual person in the way that I just trust, and it's a muscle that you really have to exercise a lot. I've gone to therapy for years. I do a lot of journaling and meditation. To quote one of my best friends, and she meant this as a compliment, but she says that I have this blind confidence. You know what? I'm going to tie that into my mom, because my mom also talks about having blind faith. And, whatever your beliefs are, I just truly believe that when you do things that are true to your core, and when you have the clarity, the mindset to just kind of sit down with yourself and pay attention to like how your nervous system is reacting and what's working for you and what's not, and what is you reacting from fear versus reacting from confidence, I guess, or like a more secure place, the universe tends to provide. And I know it kind of sounds woo woo to anyone who like might not be into that, but it's something that's worked for me. When I notice that I'm feeling that fear, I have this like mantra for myself that I honestly just adopted like a month ago. And it's my satisfaction is my compass. So if I feel that my nervous system, if I'm doing something like, oh, I got to keep this client because I need that money. Well, then I'm like miserable all the time because I'm doing something that I don't love versus, I make this joke at the restaurant. I'm like, I have like all these cutie patootie tables. And someone was like, it's so funny the way you like talk about your tables. We need more of that energy as long as you're acting in alignment with your core. And I think a lot of that also has to do with like shedding ego, which is something during my interview with the owner for the restaurant. And she saw my resume. She's like, founder, HR director, like, what are you doing here? And I told her a little bit of my story and, this is my hometown. And she's like, have you thought about when you see people that you went to high school with here? Like, how is that going to make you feel? And I loved that she asked me that. And I was like, I've thought about it and I don't care because I just feel like this is the space that I'm supposed to be in right now. Any situation that I've been in where I felt like I was trying to be someone that I'm not, that's where you end up in these like golden handcuff situations. And a therapist gave me that phrase a long time ago, where he was like, you are experiencing the best of the best and you're getting paid really well and you have the fancy title, but you're so sad and you're so stressed that you had to like end up here. Literally, my body was like failing me. I was getting like very sick and I thought something was medically wrong. And the doctor was like, no, I think you just like need to go to therapy. So those are just like things that I've just like kind of always kept in mind on this journey, is like, as soon as I feel that like, oh, my nervous system is reacting because I'm scared of losing something stable versus taking the risk because like that's what feels good. Usually taking that risk ends up feeling 10 times better than staying in the thing that I thought I should have stayed in because like that was the smart thing to do.
I tell a lot of people to think about your 80 or 90-year-old self and looking back, would you regret staying in this role and not pursuing something that you really loved? If the answer is yes, usually that creates enough almost pain to then force you to take some kind of action toward it. And I think also just going back to you listening to your intuition and then also just kind of trusting the universe, for someone who's foreign to that, I would say just try it out in really little ways. And then you were mentioning like it's a muscle that you have to build, and once you build that muscle, it just gets easier and easier to take more of those risks or leaps of faith. You took that step into Airbnb and you're really enjoying that. And it's making you realize, well, maybe I want to open my own place. If someone's experiencing these like golden handcuffs
Mhm.
and they're thinking about going into another job that might not be as like flashy, also think about it in the way that like one, you could just really enjoy that job and stay in it, and that's true to you, and you if you love it, like who cares. But
Mhm.
then two, I think your experiences are so valuable because you're in the process of opening up your own space for hospitality, and all these experiences are just going to help you make that the best experience for everyone, like employees and people who are coming. For someone who is in this position of they are feeling burnt out and they feel like they don't like their job very much and
Mhm.
it just isn't feeling aligned, what is a piece of advice you would give to them as a first step?
Yeah, I think I love talking to people. I think almost every move I've made has stemmed from like informational interviews with people. Stay curious and like lean into that curiosity. And like combine that with what just brings me joy. Like, what did I love doing as a kid? What's kind of been my through line as a human being? How can I make money doing that? I am queen of like Googling the most absurd questions. Before I even ended up in HR, I think I was looking up like jobs that deal with event planning or partnerships and letting that lead me down like a LinkedIn or Indeed jobs and just like reading different job descriptions. And then again, just like listening to that intuitive piece of how am I reacting to what I'm seeing here? I am maybe a little bit shameless with like approaching people and just asking for an informational interview. One of the reasons why I applied to work at the specific restaurant I'm at is because it's kinda like the town watering hole. Everybody goes there, and I was like, "I bet I'm gonna meet whoever I need to meet to make this hotel a reality." And sure enough, I end up meeting one of the local owners who's owned, one of the hotels around here. He introduces himself, and I'm like, "Get out. You are just the man I've been hoping to speak to." He goes, "Well, what do you wanna talk to me about?" And, I give him, like, my 1-2 on Pocono's Nest and Nook, and he's like, "Listen," he, like, puts out his hand, and he gives me the handshake. We exchange numbers, and sure enough, we ended up getting coffee the other week, and there's more conversations to come there. So for me, it's like staying curious and like don't be afraid to talk to people. In the like time that we're living in right now, people are not as used to that in-person approach and being so bold to just kind of approach someone in that way. But I found the best things have happened to me when I've like taken that risk of just, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, and it can feel so scary initially, but when you think about the worst case scenario, all it is like they say no.
Yes,
And that's better than not asking and then
right.
not ever knowing if they would say yes. Talking to people is what leads to the most opportunities. So I think the advice around just follow your curiosity. I use ChatGPT a lot too when I'm unsure of what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm like, these are all my interests. Give
Right.
me jobs that could fit in with this. And then after that, like just find someone on LinkedIn, even in person, and talk to them because that's what leads to like the craziest opportunities, especially in your experience.
I think the worst case scenario game is actually so much fun
Hmm.
because I think when you play that game, you realize how much you are underestimating yourself. And I think that is such a huge piece because whenever I've done the worst case scenario, I end up laughing at myself. I'm like, I'm not going to be homeless. I'm smart and I'm capable. It's the other thing for anyone who is unsure. You are not just one thing. Human beings are not just one thing. There is so much more to you than like what is on this piece of paper that is your resume. And I think when you play that worst case scenario game, there's just so many like little jobs out there that people just don't really consider because again, like it's just so ingrained in us to like follow this traditional path. And I just think life has so much more to offer than what, you or I were told more opportunities are being presented that are non-traditional paths. I know us millennials were trained to think about success in a certain way. Once you break that mindset, it's so freeing. I love it. If all goes well, this hotel is going to open, and maybe once that's really successful, I'm going to stop that too. And I've said in my next life, I want to be a florist. So the buck doesn't stop there, you know?
Yeah, and once you start taking those steps, you just build more trust with yourself, and then
Yeah.
you realize, oh, I can do this other thing.
It keeps things fun. Like, I certainly don't have any dull moments these days. I truly feel like every day is a little bit different in the best way.
You also mentioned something that I think is so true, that us millennials, we're kind of in this weird in between where we don't feel like we have to stay at the same company in the same role for 30 years. But
Mhm.
then also more non-traditional roles still don't feel, quote, right to us.
Yeah.
So I think it's slowly changing of us breaking through the ego attached to our roles and just to explore things that actually light us up. And I think the more stories like yours that people are exposed to, the more permission we feel like we have to be able to do that. What are you most looking forward to in your career?
I would love to open my own bed and breakfast. Right now, the Poconos is known for a lot of these like really beautiful resorts. I think we are missing a space for a more approachable luxury and like an intimate wellness setting. I think that was the one thing I learned from my time in luxury hospitality is my God, it is amazing to be treated like a VIP in a 5-star hotel or resort, but not a lot of people have access to experiences like that. I think everyone deserves to feel like a VIP, and that's what we do now with the B&B, and I'm like so proud of the reviews that we have because it's all speaking to that. They're checking in and checking out on their own, but I write my welcome note. I have little gifties. If I know it's their birthday, I try to put like balloons, or we had someone who was eloping, so I put like wedding confetti, and you really try and make people feel special, and that's just I want to create that, and specifically within the like Poconos community.
I love that. I'll be sure to include one of your links because whoever's listening probably convince them that this is like a really cool place to
My plug.
to stay. Yeah, exactly, your plug. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think there's so many good takeaways from this. And it's just nice having you on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's like literally an honor.
I loved this conversation so much. Ashley's story is such a beautiful reminder that life doesn't have